Hi, I'm Dan Schinder,
And I'm Steven Schinder.
and this is a Yesshift news desk report as we're recording this on December 18th, 2021. Steve, I can't believe it's December, let alone the month is more than halfway over. How did this happen?
Yeah, it feels like every year, like each year gets quicker and quicker. It's really weird.
Wait till you're
But,
my age, sonny boy. Yeah, they go more quickly as you get older somehow.
right, yeah. So for this Yesshift News Desk edition, we've got quite the list of things. So at the very end of this, we'll be talking about Yessongs, the video, because over the break we were watching the documentary about it, and we were like, you know what, maybe we should do a segment on it, and so that'll come at the end. But we also have news about, what's been going on with the Wakemans. There's a Steve Howe article. John Anderson made a huge announcement, and yeah, so all sorts of different things. But first, we'll start off with something that's a bit heavy, but we feel like we need to acknowledge it. So, on December 6th, it appears that it was Downs Braid Association released a song titled "Dear Arthur," which was a tribute to Arthur Labinjo Hughes,
Right.
and uh, I guess this is big news over in the UK. I'm not sure how aware listeners are of it, but you can like look up the news about it. So Arthur, sadly, he died last year, I believe, under tragic circumstances,
At
and
only six.
yeah, and like it was really terrible. What his father and stepmom were doing, and so Chris Braid felt like he had to make this song as a tribute to him, and they put out a lyric video, which I found via this Louder Sound article, and when I listened to it, like it was very emotional. You could tell that there's a lot put into it. But oddly, sometimes since then, the video has become unavailable. So I don't know what happened there, but uh, like it was a very beautiful song. And I guess the main thing is, you know, tragic things like this are a reminder that people should be kind to each other and especially to children. And it's just, yeah, like life can be quick for some people. And so it's just another reminder to be
Yeah, and the
kind.
video may be reactivated. Just like sometimes what happens to us, Steve, on Jump Talk TV, where something gets posted that accidentally unknowing to us, or sometimes knowing, it's official soundtrack, and then there's a copyright claim. We fill out the form, and then the claim gets taken back, and the video is reinstated. That might be what happened. So, folks, check it out, and maybe by the time you watch this or hear it, the link will be there and you can see the video.
Yeah, I'll see if I can find the link that I used for it. I believe it was on their official channel, the Downs Braid Association channel. So I don't know what might have happened, but
Okay.
yeah. Um, so like, there's no easy way to segue from that, but I guess I'll just keep on going with this news. So
Yeah.
another Jeff Downs related thing that kind of flew under my radar, like I didn't notice this until recently. So over a month ago, this music group that he works with called the Deck Chair Poets
Great
released
name,
a
by the way. I could
yeah.
picture that. Like that's one of those names that evokes a visual for me, anyways. It's like such a great name.
Yeah, it's got kind of like a Dead Poet Society feel to it.
Yeah.
Um, Apparently, their material has like some humor to it, at least in some of the titles. But the Christmas single that they released recently is titled "Forever Christmas," and it has a nice energy to it. Apparently, they also released a Christmas album a couple years ago. So, yeah, I'm curious to hear what that sounds like if I ever get the chance to listen to it.
Yeah.
And moving along with this sort of festive music, vibe, I suppose.
And black
Uh,
and white keys.
oh yeah, like I guess we're pretty much beginning with like keyboardist news. So there's like something Tony K related later. Um, so on December 8th, Rick Wakeman was playing some holiday music at the Norwich University Hospital's NHS Foundation Trust. Um, and like when I saw the video of this, I thought to myself, "Oh, Dad is not gonna like how this looks because it's vertical."
So folks, what Steve means, and Steve, I'm guessing you'll put the link to the video in the post. Okay. So what Steve's talking about is, folks, if you shoot a video, oh, the light went on. If you shoot a video like this and you load it into a player on YouTube or Facebook, it looks lame, is the only way I could put it. It looks like you're looking through a cracked open door because you've got this sliver of a video and all this black space. The video players are shaped like this. Shoot the video like this so it fills the screen. I know a lot of you want to post stuff maybe on Instagram. Even if you shoot like this, it works on Instagram. It'll take up the top third of the screen. It still works. But other than that, you know, I always love seeing Rick. He's one of my absolute most favorite musicians. There's nothing he could possibly play that I wouldn't be interested in checking out or that I would be displeased with. So even with that Stephen pointed out, it's still just, it's great. I just love seeing him play. He's at a grand piano, and I love that he's always seems to have a lot of humility. You know, there was that thing we covered a while back that I couldn't find the photo to, of him standing out in the rain with a bunch of munchkins, or seemingly because he's so tall, you know, kind of protesting the closure of a post office in a very small town that he lives in. He's just that kind of guy. So to see him doing some sort of charity event like this was really cool. The music's just beautiful, even though it's shot on a mobile phone that's moving around, which is great. There's some great angles and everything, but for goodness sakes, please hold your cameras, phones like this. Yeah. What'd you think of it, Steve?
I really liked it. Like, you could hear people talking and whatnot because of where it's being shot from, but it didn't really bother me. I was able to tune into the music. And
same here. It was like being there.
Yeah, there were so it's a half-hour video. There were a few songs I recognized right away. There was Jingle Bells, Deck the Halls, Angels We Have Heard on High, and Silent Night.
Are those, I'm not familiar, are those big prog hits, or? I mean, it's fun to see him play stuff like that.
Yeah. And there was even a moment like toward the end where like he was playing with one hand, and with the other hand he was like taking a sip of something, water or maybe something warm or something. So yeah. Like it's cool that he did that.
Yeah.
And some more Rick Wakeman related stuff over on his YouTube channel. He recently posted the videos of Space Oddity and Life on Mars from his 2018 live piano portraits concert film.
Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead. And then I have a question.
Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, do you have any idea why it took so long for those to end up on his YouTube channel?
I would imagine that maybe it's that he wanted to wait a while, like, you know, for people to buy the thing first, and then a while later, okay, maybe enough people have bought it, they can check out these YouTube clips.
Because it's magnificent. It's, again, I'm a big Rick fan, but it's still, you know, I'm not just going to give him a free pass. I still want to watch it and enjoy it, and I always do. But this is a must watch. I love seeing him playing songs that were done as a full band just on the piano, you know, where he's doing the whole compositions. It's just beautiful. It really is.
Yeah. And I also heard that recently the, you know, Six Wives live at Hampton Court, that video we love so much. I heard that it recently got rebroadcasted on a channel over in the UK. I think it was Sky or something like that.
Oh, wow. Cool.
Yeah.
Folks, chime in on this stuff if you're already aware of these things we're talking about, or if you go to the links that we're putting in the post, you can go ahead and comment. on the post if you're watching or listening to this where comments are enabled. And certainly you can always write into us as well and give us your thoughts at yesshiftpodcast@gmail.com. We want you to be part of the show as well.
Yeah, definitely. And there are also updates for his upcoming Even Grumpier Old Rockstar tour in the US like this coming year.
Yeah, some
So
shuffling of some dates and locations being canceled or replacements and stuff. And I got to point one out. I was kind of
yeah,
disappointed or a little perplexed. Like, no offense to my fellow Arizonians to the south in Tucson, but why? I wonder why he picked Tucson rather than Phoenix. It doesn't look like it happens to be a real like, oh well, it's on the way from this gig to that gig. Phoenix is such a larger place to play, and that's where he was booked before he canceled it before. I just thought that was odd. Plus, it's a half hour
right.
closer for me. Phoenix is an hour and a half. Tucson's 2 hours. I thought that was odd.
Right. Well, I'm looking at his website right now, and it looks like Phoenix is still on there, albeit for March
Oh,
2nd.
I didn't
And
see that.
yeah, so Tucson on March 1st and Phoenix on March 2nd.
How did I not see that? I saw the Tucson and went, oh, okay. So March 2nd, you say, for Phoenix.
Yeah. And
Okay.
there were a few dates canceled: Wichita, Chicago, and Buffalo. So you can go to his website and see like if anything has changed for you. Um, and Rick was also recently featured on the cover of The Beat magazine on the December issue. Um, it's a really nice looking photo, and
Yeah.
like the quote is kind of like it says, "I find it hard to keep motivated," and dot dot dot. And you can tell that's to lure people in to be like, "Wait, what? What's he talking about?"
Yeah. He stays so busy. I'm curious what that's all about.
Yeah, I guess it's mainly about his not quite as grumpy as last Xmas tour that he's currently doing.
Or it could be totally out of context. Like I find it hard to keep motivated to learning blast beats on the drums. I'm a keyboard player. Who knows?
Yeah, right. Yeah, it could be something like that. Okay, so moving on to his son Oliver Wakeman. Today, as of when we're recording this, he was on the NewEARS Prog show, episode 248. I believe this comes out on their podcast feed on Sunday. So a few of the things that he talked about. Well, one of the things that stood out to me that I know you and I have like a huge opinion on is they're saying that they hope that physical releases never go away.
Right.
Um, yeah, well, like for me personally, like when it comes to films, like I haven't bought a Blu-ray or DVD of a feature film for myself since like late 2009 or 2010 or something. It was one of the Terminator movies. But when it comes to music, like I definitely still want physical releases. Like I still listen to stuff digitally when convenient, but when I still like collecting the CDs and stuff.
Yeah. And why is that? Like, I'm the same way. It doesn't even occur to me to go buy a physical movie, but I insist on it for music. I'm not even clear for myself what the difference is. Someone could say, well, it's the artwork and the liner notes, but there's artwork and liner notes on movie packaging as
Yeah,
well.
there are box sets and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
So what do you think? Like, why are we like that?
I think, well, streaming services have made movies more convenient. Like they're not all on streaming
And
services, but
right. And we
but
also re-listen to music more than we re-watch a movie, unless it's Monty Python, the Holy Grail. We can watch that over and over all day.
yeah,
Or Yes songs.
yeah, and we re-listen to music on like the official streaming channels online, but I still want to get the actual package. Like I love the Quest Blu-ray art book as we featured here
Oh
before,
yeah.
but even if it's just the CD, like I still like I'll listen to the CD at least once so that I know, okay, I've listened to the actual disc. Now I can listen digitally whenever, but still like look at the thing and open it and whatnot. Like I don't know why we're like this.
And that's what I listen to, in the car. If I listen to radio in the car, 90% of the time it's not music. If it is music, it's stuff I don't have, for the most part, CDs to. It's like real old school traditional jazz and stuff like that. Otherwise, I'm popping CDs in.
Right. Um, yeah, and in this interview, they also featured a song that he recorded with Rodney Matthews a couple years ago as a single called "In the Bleak Midwinter."
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of a winter holiday vibe that they were going with. He's also done like he and Rodney Matthews have also done a version of "I Saw Three Ships" that same year, 2019. Um, in fact, I actually tweeted Oliver asking him about the song, and he said, actually, let me pull it up real quick. Yeah, okay. He's like, I asked him what's the story behind it, and was this a single? Were there multiple tracks? And he said it was a single put together by Rodney Matthews and guitarist Jeff Sheets. Bob Catley and I played on it a few years ago now. It came out before the full album Trinity and was a bonus track on the double vinyl edition. It was re released last year in a gatefold CD single sleeve.
Hmm.
So, yeah,
Interesting.
yeah, I gave that a listen. It's a really rocking rendition of I Saw Three Ships. Even includes bagpipes, which was really cool.
That is cool. Very
Yeah.
continental.
Yeah, and on the NewEARS, they also played Anyone Can Fly from the album he did with Gordon Giltrap called Ravens and Lullabies. And I never knew this, but this song is about his daughter.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, actually, I'm not even sure if I've ever listened to this album. Like, whenever I hear something from Oliver Wakeman, like recently, I keep thinking to myself, I need to like explore his full discography because this guy, he knows what people like us, so like the older stuff, like he knows like how great some of that is, but also is able to bring like modern sensibilities to it. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, like any Oliver Wakeman news like really excites me. And they ended the show with "The Gift of Love" from a page, which I've said before is possibly in my top 10 Yessongs. So like that was really
Oh,
cool.
wow.
Yeah. Um, okay, so also Tony Kaye was interviewed on a podcast called The Hustle.
And there's
Uh,
some news there that I want to comment on. One, I forgot that he also did some work with David Bowie, as we mentioned about Rick earlier. Of course, he
yeah.
did, and became so close to David for the rest of their lives that he was one of the very few outside of David's family that knew he was ill. But the thing about Tony Kaye's news is it's cool to hear that there's a Circa album in the works right now, which is really cool. I'm into that.
Yeah, I think their most recent album, Valley of the Windmill, came out about 5 years ago. So it's great to hear that the band is still active. Billy Sherwood is very busy with all these different projects, but it's cool to know that Circa is still on the radar.
So what
Um,
what is the lineup? It's Billy, Tony, is it Jimmy Hahn and Jay Shellen, or
no, the lineup has changed considerably in the last several years. So
or I wonder where
the
they got that routine from.
yeah, so the other musician, so Tony and Billy, of course, but the others are Scott Connor and let me just make sure I don't mess up his name. Rick Tierney.
Who
Um,
plays what? I'm
Scott,
unfamiliar with them.
Scott Connor is the
Drummer?
drummer.
Yeah, okay. I
Yeah,
remember his name.
yeah. And Rick Tierney plays bass. And yeah, it was a very informative interview. Like Tony talked about End of Innocence, but then it like went through like pretty much his entire career, talking about what what it was like his first departure from Yes, and what that was all about, and working with Badger and David Bowie, like you said, Detective, Badfinger, and like before what it was like before rejoining Yes and the whole Yes West era, and there's even like a Bonham related story, which was cool to hear. So yeah, so I'll include the link to this, and people can give
Cool.
that a listen. It's worth the time.
Cool. He also did during that period, I don't remember exactly when, I think not long before rejoining Yes. And in the early 80s, late 70s, he did like soundtrack work, if I'm not mistaken, for like Discovery Channel type stuff. And maybe
Yeah,
even specifically Discovery Channel.
right. Yeah, that's something I haven't been able to find much about. Like it's like I feel like there should be something that like if he gets interviewed by someone again, it'd be something I'd like to hear about. Like
Well,
yeah.
maybe we'll have him on and talk to him about it. And I didn't know till I watched the Yessongs documentary. I don't know why I didn't know this. I didn't know until Chris mentioned that Tony left because Tony and Steve had some sort of falling out that looked like they just couldn't repair. And that's why he left and Chris sought out Rick. I never knew that before.
It's really interesting because in recent years they get along really well.
Yeah, and I always heard it was musical differences. He didn't want to get into synthesizers. He wanted to stay with piano and organ, but maybe that was just the PR line.
Well, in this interview, he did mention that that was part of it. Like, but he said it was a gradual thing, and he didn't just come out and say one day, "I don't want to play Moog or Mellotron or whatever."
Yeah,
Um,
that's true.
so yeah, I guess it was a combination of that and
I wonder if one had to do
differences
with
with the band.
yeah, I wonder if one had to do with the other, maybe.
Yeah. So
But,
yeah, it could
okay.
have been a combination of things,
Yeah.
but speaking of Steve Howe, on December 9th, there was a Q&A interview with him released by Rock Seller magazine. So he talked about what was like working on the Quest, which reminds me. So apparently there's been a delay with the Red Apple like vinyl version of the Quest. Like it was previously gonna be released January 11th, but on their website it looks like it says February 22nd now.
Hmm.
So now I saw someone post about this. Apparently it had to do with the supply chain, like what
Yeah.
happened with John Lodge. So
Right.
um, but yeah, anyway, he recommended the song Sister Sleeping Soul and comparing it to Your Move and Wondrous Stories because of a Portuguese guitar.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
like that he did that. And I like that the conversation was also topical time wise and not just asking about the old days. It's great that he got the opportunity to talk about the new album, and Sister Sleeping Soul might be one of, if not my favorite song on that album. So that's cool that he made that comparison.
Yeah, out of the three bonus tracks, it's my favorite of those three. And yeah, I love singing along to that one. It's really good. And he also talked about his lifestyle. Apparently,
Mm-hmm.
in 1983, he committed to meditating every day. Um, he was also asked what the turning point was for Yes. He said close to the edge, doing the song.
Yeah.
And he was asked about favorite contemporaries from Prog of that time. Um, so, did you want to talk about this, Dad? Like
Yeah.
what he said about this?
Yeah, I think first of all, that's a great question. And I love the answer. So I'm going to read this, folks. This is cool. So Steve says, we had respect for Genesis and certainly ELP, but I have to say, King Crimson. I mean, King Crimson were kind of the lords of prog in a way. They were a problematic band because they weren't easy to grasp, and it was sometimes very kind of aggressive music, like 20th century schizoid band. Um, they had all sorts of levels of their music. Crimson was a band that, yes, always had respect for, an ELP. We didn't bother a lot with Genesis. We didn't sit at home listening to them and see if our next record should be like them. The worst thing we could do that we could have done, because it would, I'm sorry, that's the worst thing we could have done because we didn't want to be influenced by them. So whatever Genesis wherever Genesis was going, we were going somewhere else, and he laughs. And that's interesting. I like that. And it's, I've heard this before from many other artists. Like Ian Anderson used to say he never listened to anybody else. And it's interesting that some of these bands, Genesis, let's take Genesis, Jethro Tull, and Yes, ELP to a slight degree, but let's focus on those three. While they say they didn't really listen much to anyone else, they all sort of trended the same way, and morphed with time and got a little bit more commercially oriented and all that. So I find that interesting. But that's great stuff. I love hearing someone like Steve talk about that stuff.
Yeah, and I mean King Crimson got really weird. So it's funny to hear like his perspective on that, and like also knowing in hindsight how Bill Bruford gravitated toward that, and even
Very early on, and was with
yeah,
them for years.
yeah, and even played Genesis shows. So like that's
Yeah.
pretty funny.
Yeah, King Crimson music makes Yes music sound like the Osmonds or something. You know what I mean? It's just so, if you want to trip out on acid without taking acid, just listen to a bunch of King Crimson. I saw them on the Three of a Perfect Pair tour, and they were just phenomenal. That's some of Bill's best drumming. Adrian Belew is just amazing. It's really worth a watch. I just love that stuff. And
yeah, the video's really cool with like the improvisation, and I repeat myself when I'm under stress. Like that.
Oh yeah. For Elephant Talk. I repeat myself when I'm stressed. I repeat myself when I'm stressed. I repeat myself when I'm stressed. I repeat. It's great. But Bill's playing is great. And even he and Adrian Belew get on a set of opposing Simmons drums facing each other and do a thing. And Adrian also plays a 4-piece kit off to the side in one song while Bill's just doing all this other. It's great. And you kind of see, Bill was real honest with himself and honest with the band when he left, saying, this is what I want to do. And he went and did it. And we all should do that. He was true to his creativity and certainly never settled, which is really cool. I respect that.
Yeah, I admire that he's honest about what he wants and that he went for it. Yeah.
Cool.
And moving on to another Howe. So Dylan Howe got a mention in an article about Wilco Johnson. This is from Wirral Globe. And I'll link this like the other things. So the article came out December 11th, titled Back from the Dead, Wilco's Still Rocking the Stage at the Age of 70. So Wilco Johnson, I wasn't very familiar with him, but
I wasn't at all, honestly.
Yeah, but interesting to see that like he fought cancer and is like back at it, like playing shows. So
at 70.
Yeah, and it mentions in this article, following a stint with Ian Dury and the Blockheads in the 1980s, he formed the Wilco Johnson Band with Blockheads bassist Norman Watt Roy, featuring former Blockhead Dylan Howe on drums.
Blockhead.
The trio is known as one of the most exciting R&B bands in the world today. And it looks like the Wilco Johnson Band will be playing the new Brighton Floral Pavilion on February 10th. I wasn't able to find out for sure if Dylan is still part of that.
Yeah, I was wondering. I'm hoping so.
Yeah, so I mean, either way, it'll probably be a cool performance. But yeah, like I feel like I don't hear enough about what Dylan Howe's up to. So, and I like hearing what he's up to. So hopefully, yeah.
Cool. I want to kind of mention some stuff for this next one, if that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
So Alan White had a Facebook post, The Fox at 40. This was on December 11th. It's still there, of course. And I remember this era. And this is about in 1981 when Chris Squire and he met in Virginia Water, Surrey, to write a record, Run with the Fox, which was released later that same month. And he says, this was during the lull between XYZ sessions with Jimmy Page earlier in the year and before we met and started working with Trevor Rabin in 1982 on the Cinema Project, which of course became Yes and resulted in 90125. I remember being so excited when Run with the Fox came out because my two favorite bands were no more, Yes and Led Zeppelin. And then to hear that possibly, the remnants of those two bands were going to do something together was just so exciting. And then it didn't really come to fruition. And none of that music came out till years later, recordings and things. But I remember Run with the Fox, this two-man band, basically, with
Yeah.
one of my two favorite rhythm sections of all time, Chris Squire and Alan White. Of course, Chris Squire and Bill Bruford were a great rhythm section, but Chris Squire and Alan White just did decades worth of music together. And this was really cool. But Alan goes on to say the sessions for the Fox took just a few days. We usually worked in the late afternoon in Chris's basement studio. I'm sure it was late afternoon because Chris couldn't get there on time at noon. The same studio where Yes Relayer album was recorded. That's a cool little piece of trivia right there.
Yeah.
An anecdote. I wonder, I'd love to put my ear to those walls and see what you could hear still rumbling around and vibrating. I would drive back and forth each day from my home to work with Chris and Peter Sinfield. Nigel Luby was our engineer for the sessions, and Greg Jackman helped with the mixing. After the bass tracks were complete, Andrew Price Jackman added some excellent orchestrations, and he and Chris worked with Barry Rose and the boys choir of St. Paul's Cathedral to add some backing vocals. This song brings back some special memories for me. I hope you enjoy it. Happy Christmas, Alan White. It's a neat, that song itself and that piece of work and hearing how that all came together is a neat anecdote, because it certainly is a stepping stone for what kept Yes being alive and continuing on. And as you've mentioned, Rick Wakeman says that 90125 is probably the most important Yes album ever. It kind of rebirthed everybody's Yes-ism career that came before that, because it enlightened a whole new generation that came since then, that then dug back into the catalog. I'd love to see some sort of report of what sort of sales, if there's any way to figure this out, if there's any way to figure out what kind of back catalog pre-90125 sales were generated from 90125 coming out, where people dug back and said, whoa, what's all this other stuff they did? Starship Trooper, what the hell is that? Close to the Edge, people who were really into like the Owner of a Lonely Heart and Changes stuff, and Changes is even pretty progressive by commercial standards. So that piece, Run with the Fox, I think is sort of the stitch that really kept Yes alive for all these decades forward.
Yeah, and it's a really fun single to listen to. Like it had so side A had Run with a Fox, and side B was the instrumental version titled Return of the Fox.
Yeah.
And like it's one of those rare instances where we get to hear Chris on lead, and he has like such a great voice. Like like it's amazing that he didn't like do more like on lead. It's bizarre, but like Run with a Fox has become, I think, like a cult classic among Yes fans in terms of Christmas music.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and we'll talk more about it on the Christmas albums episode, because there's a version of it on Chris Squire's Swiss Choir.
Right.
There's also a really cool version that John Davison and Billy Sherwood put on this album called A Prog Christmas a couple years ago.
But Francis Monkman plays keyboards on that. Just kidding.
Right. There's also this other post that was on Alan White's page on December 15th. So this was Plastic Ono Band at Lyceum or Lyceum, I can't remember what the pronunciation is, in 1969 for UNICEF benefit. So he shared along these like pictures of that gig along with this quote. So Alan said, I went down there in my Mini and went on stage at the
Lyceum. We'll say Lyceum. We're Americans. Give us a break.
Yeah, just prior to the Plastic Ono Band going on. Eric Clapton turns up with the whole Delaney and Bonnie band, so we had to hustle another couple of drum kits. Then Keith Moon joins me on stage, playing my 16-inch tom-toms. It was a thing where somebody would hit one chord and it was a jam.
I love that. Oh, can you imagine the
Can you
people that Alan
imagine?
has, huh? What's that?
Oh, I said, can you
Oh,
imagine what it's like?
speaking of Chris singing lead,
Yeah.
you know, the people Alan has played with, George Harrison, John Lennon, and the Plastic Ono Band. He played in Ginger Baker's. I always forget if he was in Ginger Baker's Air Force or Ginger Baker's Army. I think Air Force. Just legendary stuff. And he's just such a humble, great, down to earth guy. Just love that.
Yeah, and I think this is the same venue where Steve Howe played his first Yes concert,
Oh,
which is where that live
that's right.
recording of Clap comes from on the Yes album.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, so great to hear Alan's memories. Like that sort of stuff is always like they're always really neat tidbits to hear.
Yeah.
Um, on December 13th, so we've talked about the Prog report. They did some polls like, album of the year, song of the year, that type of stuff. And Yes's The Quest was a candidate in a few of those categories. And I feel like it won the category that was most obvious for it to win, given like some of the others it was up against, like Dream Theater, Transatlantic, stuff like that. So The Quest won album cover of the year. So Dad, does this surprise you at all? Or
In a way, yes, and in a way, no. In a way, it does when I think in the context of, we recently put out the visual version of the tribute to Roger Dean, which we had, I think, like 33 images or something. And when you look at that man's body of work, who, by the way, has been in and out of Yes about as many times as Rick Wakeman. It's a wonderful cover. But it's not one of my favorites. But on the other hand, if you're a candidate for album cover of the year, if Roger Dean is in that mix, you can pretty much forget it. I think that's going to win because his work is just so beautiful. The only piece of work I've ever seen that he's ever done that I don't personally favor is the piece he did for Tony Kaye with End of Innocence. It's so unlike anything else he's done. Not that everything looks the same, but you know what I mean. So I'm kind of not surprised. Roger Dean did the album cover. Yeah, it won.
Yeah, the album cover for The Quest has gotten really high up there for me. It's, well, like we've talked about before, I feel like Roger Dean has really evolved and gotten better over the years. Like he was great to begin with, but he continuously gets more adventurous and detailed, and I love that.
Yeah, and the more I analyzed it, the more I fell in love with it too.
Yeah. And Roger Dean recently did a Facebook Live on the 14th. He's doing another one on the 21st, so that should be fun. But I was able to catch the one on the 14th. So,
oh wow, cool.
Yeah, his daughter Frasier was working the camera and the questions and whatnot. It was mainly about architecture, and he was showing sketchbook illustrations, and he answered a few questions from viewers. A couple of them actually made him laugh. Like someone asked him if he was involved with the makeup for the ABWH music video Brother of Mine, and like that gave him a good laugh. He was like, yeah, and he explained like what it was like. And
that's cool.
He also laughed when someone asked, so apparently there's this architecture design show called Grand Design. I think that's what it's called. Grand Designs, plural, I should say. And I think someone asked whether seeing that show be so popular ever makes him frustrated or something, especially because it uses like box designs for like the buildings and like instead of the more rounded organic ones that he favors. And he like laughed at that, and he was like, I actually enjoy watching Grand Design and like seeing the challenges that they overcome. So
they should make him a judge on that or something, a guest judge or something like that. There's shows like that. Remember that? I don't know if you ever saw the one that was like Legos, It was like that. These crazy,
Oh,
amazing.
yeah,
Remember that?
I know of it, but I've never watched it.
It was actually pretty good, but Enja, my wife, folks, Enja's been watching this one that is in Britain, and it's oh, another one. So there's one on baking that's like that, but there's this other one with horticulture where they have to create, like the last episode I walked in on, they're creating these monsters out of plants and stuff that are like 14 feet high. Really neat stuff. So he could easily be a judge on that. I think he'd be absolutely worthy. One quick note on Roger, and we'll cover this some more when we do. Well, I'll save it for the Yessongs part. Remind me, please.
Okay. Yeah. Um, so moving on to the next person, John Anderson. People may have heard of him.
Yeah,
Um,
he did another one of the in and out people of Yes.
right. So on December 16th, he announced the launch of his Patreon.
Oh,
Um,
interesting.
Yeah, so he says, I'm starting to work with Patreon and will be uploading music, songs, and ideas, stories, paintings, videos each and every week from now on. These coming weeks will be so exciting for me, like shaking a giant, beautiful tree that I've been building for years. I realized I have so many projects and stories to tell. The more I looked in my cupboard, i.e., my Mac computer, the more I found the missing songs I wrote with people around the world plus the short stories never published, my memories of my growing up and joining my first band with my brother Tony. Then, for some reason, I've written musicals and operas of a sort, yet never found time to finish them for a reason too. So now with Patreon, the door is opening very wide. I feel like my life is beginning again. So I tend to you with a humble heart, all my love and happiness for the coming years ahead. Love and light, your brother John, and hugs from Janie. Uh, so, so I don't know if you know this, Dad, but I've never before subscribed to a Patreon. Like I've listened to a bunch of podcasts over the past, like coming up on 7 years, and some of them have Patreons. A few of them are even friends of mine, but as cool as the content that they'd advertise sounded, I never subscribed to them. This
You
is the
figured
first.
just F them, basically.
um,
This is your first Patreon subscription?
yeah, this is
That's
my
cool.
first. Yeah, my first time subscribing to a Patreon. So, I'll just like mention like what the tier prices are. So this is at
Okay.
patreon.com/John Anderson. Uh, I did the $10 one for now, and with that, I was able to unlock. There are a few images titled "Images of Hopefulness." They're basically what you'd expect from seeing the music videos on his YouTube channel. But there are also about 3 songs that I was able to get in that tier. So
That's
there's
cool.
yeah, there's Concerto 3, which sounds like him playing a classical guitar, I believe. Um, like it sounds.
Are they
It
all
ha-
him? Is it, I mean, is it all him playing? Do you know?
I feel like there might also be another guitarist.
I'd be
Like
able to tell by the level of playing because he's not
okay,
really a guitar player.
yeah, well, okay, yeah. Like it has kind of a mood for a day feel to it, so I wonder if there's maybe like him and someone else on there, but
Okay.
I don't know. I was also able to unlock there's a live version of Roundabout. Um there's Fluorescent, which is basically him like noodling around on the piano. And
Huh.
there's also More, which I believe is in the world music genre. Like it's
Oh,
yeah, like it feels like it has stuff from another culture or two.
I love that stuff. And are these from different time periods, Steve?
I, I'm not sure when these were recorded.
They
It's
don't
kind of
come with like credits or annotations like that or anything?
no. I guess that's something that I wish would be included. Like it just says the song titles and
Hmm.
like not really more.
How does Roundabout sound? Like, can you tell what era it is?
I think this is from one of his acoustic shows.
Oh,
Um, I believe. Like
oh,
I actually,
that makes sense.
yeah,
Yeah.
I actually forgot to listen to this one because it's a live version of Roundabout, and I was more
You've heard it
like,
before.
um,
That makes sense. It would be like a solo version if he's putting on his Patreon.
yeah,
Um,
like it's just him on the stage from the looks of it.
okay.
Um, and there's also a $50 tier. Right now, a couple of the things that are available for that include Better by Far, which I know is a title of one of the songs on Anderson Stoltz's album Invention of Knowledge. So I'm wondering if this might be a different version.
Yeah, like an
Um,
alternate take or something.
yeah, or a demo or something.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh,
there's
live?
also there's also Ireland, which I believe might be on the Promise Ring album, if I remember correctly. So again, is this a
I
different
have
version?
that,
I
and
don't
I don't
know.
remember. Yeah, I don't remember. I have that
Or
CD.
oh, actually, you know what? I think this might actually be the title of a song on Angel's Embrace.
Okay.
Um,
I think you're
yeah,
right. I don't think it's on the Promise Ring.
yeah. I think I was mixing it up because Promise Ring has Celtic influence and
Yeah.
Ireland, but Um, yeah, and there's also a $100 per month tier. And one of the things on there
Oh, come wash
is
your car.
one of the things on there is titled Opus Puzzle Section. No idea what that is.
Huh.
And the other thing is Zamran. As next to that it says new music. So for those who don't know, for like 20 years, John has been working on and off again on a sequel to Elias of Sunhillow titled Songs of Zamran, the son of of Elias. And so I'm wondering if this is what may have been sort of trickled out as demos over the years, like if
Interesting.
if it's anything we may have heard before or maybe not. Like I'm really curious about it.
And I'm curious who Zamaran's mother is.
Oh,
That could be a whole new chapter that I wonder if you
or
would ever address.
since they're aliens, do they reproduce differently? We don't
Oh,
know.
oh, that's true too. What I love about all this so far is that he's 77. His net worth, I believe, is only, and I do mean only, I was shocked a while ago to learn his net worth is only, I think, like $10 million, which means he probably has 50 million hidden away somewhere, which is fine by me. But to be that of that age and be that set, and he's still working so hard and so prolific and putting stuff out, and he works with kids and he does interviews and I love that. I love that.
Yeah, and this is something I've been wanting for a while. Like I've said before, maybe even on this show, that John has so many works from over the decades that he hasn't finished and put out. And I would love for all of it to be put out, even if it's in an unfinished form. And
One big
so,
mashup, just cut them all together.
yeah, and so it looks like this might be like the first steps of that. And yeah, I like it. I'd like if anyone's doing any of the higher tiers, I'd be curious to hear um like how different is some of that stuff, or is it kind of the same? Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
let us know. And if he does put everything like this out, I've got a name for him I'd like to submit, and I'll submit it publicly right here. Ready?
yeah.
Lexicon of John.
Oh wow. Yeah, that's very good.
What defines him, all this work and all these different areas he's done. He's talking about operas and musical, 20-year follow-up to Elias of Sunhillow, the Lexicon of John. It makes perfect sense.
Yeah. And also, just today on his YouTube channel, released the song "I Believe," which he did with Tommy Calton or Calton. I'm not sure how it's pronounced, but it says the amazing Tommy Calton on guitar. Tim Franklin added his 200-year-old string bass. I added some orchestral tinsel, and Matt. I think that's Matt. Actually, I don't know which Matt it is. It says Matt at the knobs. A heartfelt video by the master Mick Byrne. And it says, "'Tis the season to be jolly, joy to the world. Oh, Michael Franklin, I guess wrote this, the
Mhm.
producer. And yeah, this video has imagery from multiple faiths, and I guess it's supposed to be something for the winter holidays, but it doesn't feel like the song doesn't sound overtly,
Like Christmassy or
Christmassy. Like
yeah,
it sounds more universal to
yeah,
me. Like it's simple but nice, you know?
yeah. It's more of a song of goodwill, I guess. And this is a great time to release that around the holidays
Yeah.
as we're closing out not just the year, but coming up on 2 years of just craziness in the world.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm very excited to see what else John puts out as usual.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so yesterday, as of when we're recording this, Outlanders, they who released the single "Closer to the Sky" featuring Trevor Rabin on guitar, they released a music video for the song, and it's kind of odd to me because it has like this giant statue with writing on it.
Yeah.
Um, like I don't know where this is. There's also like some hearts hanging down from strings from a ceiling. Um, so yeah, it's kind of odd to me, but at the same time, I still really like the song. It's
Me too.
yeah,
It's cool that Trevor's involved. Cool to hear that.
yeah. Like we've said, like I'm very excited to hear anything else Trevor Rabin's able to put out in the future. Like now that it seems like he's able to do these other things now.
Yeah.
Also, yesterday, the Yes official Facebook page shared tribute band Total Mass Retain's January show links.
This is really cool because I don't know how many other bands would be this supportive of, certainly wish them well, but to be this supportive to share the concert dates for a tribute band to your band. I think that's so cool. That's just so magnanimous of them to do that. I love it.
Yeah, so it looks like they have three shows in January. One is on the 8th at the Kennett Flash over at Kennett Square in Pennsylvania. And the other
Mm-hmm.
two are at the Iridium on January 10th in New York City. So yeah, I'll add the links to those in the description.
Cool.
Um, and one of our friends online, John Beagley, singer songwriter, he's been saying that he's working on his own cover of ARW's only song, "Fragile." He says, "Thrilled that my best friend Robin Shell from Life in Digital and Iconic Sky is going to join in on the vocals." So yeah, I'm really curious to hear what he does with this. What do you think about this, Dad?
Yeah, I am too. And I'm not sure what to anticipate. It's a neat thing that he's doing because that was their only song, that they collaborated on together for that project.
Yeah,
So
and it started out as a song that Trevor made for a TV show soundtrack, and then
right,
John and Rick just added stuff to it.
yeah. So now I'm eager to see how this comes out.
Yeah, I'm curious to see if it's a bit more different than what we're used to from the song. And
Yeah,
if it is, like I'm all for like reimagining
yeah. Why
stuff.
why do the exact same thing? Which sometimes you could say, "Wow, that's great musicianship. They sounded just like them," but I'd rather they put their own spin on it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it could still sound good either way.
Sure.
But in the end, this is, I think the bottom line is that this is a really out there choice of a song to cover. So
That's
I
true.
applaud that direction.
Yeah.
So looking
Let's
forward
take the
to,
one original composition that this band did. Yeah.
yeah.
And cover that. Yeah.
Yeah, so whenever that comes out, I'll see if like we can share on our Facebook page.
Sure.
Okay, so yeah, that's all the news. So for the rest of this, we're talking about Yessongs. Because yeah, like we mentioned, like we were watching the documentary on Thanksgiving week, and we were like, oh, we should talk about this. So
Yeah, and it is the
yeah,
49th anniversary of the film too.
yeah, like it was recorded well, according to Forgotten Yesterdays, December 15th, 1972.
Yeah.
So yeah, and we even have a few comments uh from people in different fan groups. So yeah, where'd you want to start with this, Dad?
Let's start with the fans' comments. Let's do that. We'll just take turns reading those, and then we'll give our take on it.
Okay. Yeah, well, why don't you start with that first one?
Okay, and this is regarding thoughts on the concert and documentary. So Edward Kastner, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Edward, says, loved it. Loved it until I saw it. I can't believe it was only about an hour long. What was on there was great, but I missed so much compared to the 3 LPs. I get that. I've mentioned to you that I can't believe that Siberian Khatru and Heart of the Sunrise are not on there, but then you do have some additional material on the LPs that are from when Bill Bruford was with them on a previous tour. So, you kind of can't count that because they honored Bill, I think, by doing that, which is great. But that's an interesting take. I agree. There's some missing stuff there. But Steve, didn't you say that you heard that possibly Siberian Khatru and Heart of the Sunrise, that part of the film got lost or damaged or something like that?
No, I was saying that was like my theorizing. Like I don't know for
Okay.
sure if that's what happened or if maybe they thought the performances for that wasn't as good and
That's
essentially
crazy
did
though.
it.
They're so great. They're great. But anyways, yeah, go ahead and read the next one.
Yeah, John Slowick says, I have the DVD. I love it. I just wish it had Siberian Khatru on it.
Hello, is this thing on? Yes, people.
Yeah.
That's right. And then Pete Wilder says, amazing performances with a very green Alan. That's right. He was 23, if I remember correctly. I think the low lighting actually contributed to the mystique of Yes at the time. I don't know how low the lighting was in person. When I was watching some of this with Enja, I pointed out right away. I said, look how dark it is. It's like so difficult to, watch. But so that's an interesting take. My thing was that, and I told her, I said, look how archaic the lighting is. This is before all the fancy stuff and before things like Very Lights came out and before the lasers and all of that. It's just like they're just playing at some theater with some freaking lights on and a spotlight once in a while. It's weird that it's so dark, but I do appreciate this take that it adds to the mystique of Yes at the time. But I wonder if it was that dark in real life in person. It might not have been.
Yeah, maybe. I do agree with Pete that how it looks, at least on video, does make it feel more mysterious. Like, I think out of all the Yes concert films, this one feels to me the most otherworldly or like it's in another dimension or something.
I agree.
And
Yeah.
which is weird to think about because you have tours with like the Crab Nebula that the Deans put together, or the Inflatables tour, as
Right.
like Tiano called it.
Yeah. The one with the giant goldfish bowls with the koi on either side. Oh no, that was something else.
Okay. And Philip Mason says Chris Squire's solo is on the album but not on the video. Why can't songs that were omitted in the original DVD not be recovered and released? And I'll just like interject here and say, so on the live album, the songs with Bill Bruford on them were Perpetual Change, Long Distance Runaround, and The Fish.
Right.
And looking at the listing on Forgotten Yesterdays, it looks like they didn't play any of those songs at that show. In fact, I'm not even sure that they played Perpetual Change on that tour. But anyway, Philip continues. Filming was also done for a second DVD, but this hasn't been released either. And I was sort of confused. I asked him to elaborate. He said, all I've read is that a second filming was done at a different venue, but I'm not sure where or when.
Oh, that's interesting. I never knew that. That's interesting. Thanks, Philip. I'd love to. Let's follow up on that. Let's see what we can find out. That's really, gosh, where is that and what is on it? And it might be the same stuff, the same exact show, omitting Bill's stuff, but maybe there's Heart of the Sunrise in Siberian Kaju. I would buy that DVD with just those two songs. Nick Brown says the film sound may be a bit rough and ready, but wow, the performances are magnificent, high octane, adventurous, and joyous. Vintage Yes makes you proud to be a Yes fan. I agree. They had so much. They were kids. They were kids, and they had so much energy.
Yeah.
And the stage clothes were just otherworldly. You know, to use your term again, when you look at what Chris was wearing with that sequined embroidered butterfly thing on the back, and then the wings off his arms, and you know, each of them. Alan was, you know, maybe the most normal looking one. Like he was like,
he really stood out.
Yeah, he hadn't found that voice yet, and I'm not sure he ever did. And not that that's any absence of anything. Then Rick with his sequin cape, and
yeah,
just the turning mirror disc and ball, just the energy, the archaic equipment, and the sound is rough to some degree, I think, simply because it was 1972, but it's raw, and Steve is just on freaking fire. They all are, but you really, Steve Howe just ripping it up. It's a great performance, and it's what live performing is really all about, and in my opinion. So I like Nick's take a lot.
Yeah, and this is the last fan comment we have from Jim Peacock, who says, not the best sound or video, but the band was on fire. Their exuberance and energy make up for the poor sound and film work, in my opinion. And
I think I've seen it so many times since back then that it didn't occur to me that the sound is kind of, I need to watch it with those ears again.
Yeah, I remember when I was maybe in 8th grade or something. I remember looking up someone's review of it and being like, the sound could have been much better. And I thought to myself, I never thought that the sound had problems, just because, like, you know, I was like, so, like, I love the sound of it. I'm so used to it. It's so, I guess one could get nostalgic over it. And
yeah, because it's the sound of that era. It's what those instruments sounded like live then, with the onstage stuff and the PA sound they had of the time. Maybe I'm just used to that or something. I don't know. Now I'm curious how fucked up it is. I got to listen and see. But I love the film. Again, you know, when did I see it for the first time? I was 13 or 14. So that would have been 77, right? Yeah, 77.
Well, I know that I think it first came out in 75, but I don't know about like maybe repeat showings.
Yeah, like because there was, I've told you about in near where I grew up, by Grandma and Grandpa's house, there was a theater called, so folks, this is in Canoga Park. We lived in West Hills. Canoga Park near Canoga High School was a theater called the Baronet Theater. It was a walk-in theater, and on Tuesdays and Thursday nights, all they played were rock movies. And I saw, for the first time, I saw Yessongs and The Song Remains the Same on the same bill in the same night. I mean, that was just my dream. My two favorite bands have a concert film out. It was amazing. And I went back every time it played. That was like something that me and couple different friends did for like 3 years. We did this. It was great. And I took grandma. I took my mom to see it. She got into Yes a bit. I remember her borrowing the Close to the Edge album to take to a friend's house. And then I took her to see Yessongs. And I don't remember what played with it, if also The Song Remains the Same played. But yeah, I remember actually smoking a joint with grandma watching that movie. And I had to be like, maybe I was 15 by then. Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah. It was awesome seeing something like that in the theater. I mean, I think we take that for granted these days. Every year someone puts out, like every Rush tour, there's a concert DVD for that. That's great. I think we expect it. And a live album, you know, we get so used to that. But back then there was an Alice Cooper movie. There was Joe Cocker and the Mad Dogs and Englishmen. I saw those. A couple other things I just can't remember right now, but that was a big thing. And to have a neighborhood theater to go see that stuff at was just amazing. In fact, when they closed, somehow a friend of mine got on the walls, they had like the concert, the movie posters and stuff. And for The Song Remains the Same, there was a set of the individual members' pictures, and those are the individual pictures that are in the fold-out pages of The Song Remains the Same album. And somehow a friend of mine got some of those and gave me the one of John Bonham. I still have it.
Yeah, and in the Yessongs 40 Years After documentary, I think someone said something along the lines of there wasn't really much like this at the time, like
Right.
this type of concert film. And I had to like think about like I know I wasn't alive back then, but I'm like having a hard time thinking of like what other concert film was around before
I
Yessongs.
might have named all of them, those other ones.
Like
Although The Song Remains the Same was filmed a year after that and came out a year after that. It was filmed in 73, came out in 76.
I
So
think
yeah.
I think ELP might have put out something.
Well, the
Um,
one, oh, you're right, they did.
the pictures at an exhibition.
Yes, and maybe even
Okay.
one before that, the one where Keith is wearing like this, it's cut kind of high above his waist, and you see someone helping him get into it in the dressing room, and he did the classic thing with the Hammond C3, putting daggers in it. What was that? Pictures at an exhibition? It might have been. Yeah, that would have
Maybe.
been from that same era, though. You're right.
Yeah, and the documentary is very informative. They have interviews with because this was recorded in like 2011 and came out 2012. So it had Chris Squire, Steve Howe, and Roger Dean. I I found it odd that Alan White was not
Me
included
too.
in it because like it's
Me
his because like I understand if they want to do just people who were in the current lineup at the time, but Alan was still in the band and this
And he
tour
was in the
was
film.
yeah, and this tour was his first tour. Like it's
Yeah.
very strange that he wasn't included in that documentary.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. So what year was that?
What the documentary?
Yeah.
It was filmed. The interview portions were filmed 2011 and released in 2012.
So I'm trying to think of what might have been going on with him at the time. I don't know. And John, like, why isn't John there? Why isn't Rick there? Rick
Right.
always has something to say about something. Why wasn't he there? You know?
Yeah, and I mean, like at that time, like in the interviews, like Roger Dean even mentions, like I know that um people are like upset about John not being in the band, but I think that if you can separate, like if you can get used to the idea of John not being there, I think the music still sounds fantastic.
Yeah, of the lineup at the time. And you know what I'm
Yeah,
realizing, Steve?
yeah,
I don't recall through the whole documentary Steve or Chris commenting on the fact that Alan, it not only was his first tour, but he only had 2 weeks to learn their body of work. There's really kind of no mention of that part of the feeling of what was going on at the time, you know?
huh, yeah. That is kind of weird. They
Yeah,
they they do mention some interesting tidbits, like they said something about the money and the payment. Like they got one
that's right.
installment, and then like whatever money it made later, they didn't like
They
see
never
that money.
saw. Yeah.
It's just bizarre. But yeah, with Roger Dean, like said some other really cool things. Like he was talking about how with music you want it to be a gift, and ticket stubs are one thing, but the way he was approaching the artwork was like this is like
The whole
it,
package.
yeah, the
Yeah.
whole package. And like I didn't know this, but he said that when Close to the Edge was released on CD, like back in the 90s, like it didn't have the waterfall painting on the inside. It was just black and white on the inside. And it's like, whoa, that sounds really disappointing.
Yeah, it is the close to the edge image.
Yeah.
Hello? You know, it's like the album, the song is about that place and they left that out. You know, I remember, and then I want to give my Roger Dean comment from that documentary. I remember when things went to CD, and the biggest disappointment was exactly that, that beautiful artwork and really neat graphics by people like artwork from Roger Dean, graphics from Hypnosis got shrunk from this down to this. You know, I
Yeah.
mean, it's like, even if I reach back here, let me see what I got.
Yeah, like I wish technology were at a point where we had some sort of physical medium that we could hold in our hands and both shrink it and expand it, you
Yeah,
know, like
you know, this being reduced from, and this is graphics, it's, you know, but
yeah,
it's got the,
Rush, yeah, it's Rush's Power Windows
yeah, for the,
CD.
but to read this is like painful for me, even with my new reading glasses and my magnifying glass. It's like, seriously, I can't even keep my place. And then, you know, we talked about this iconic album, The Song Remains the Same, and they actually did a pretty good job with, you know, the different photos, and there's a booklet in there, which is great, but for the
Yeah.
most part, you know, you lose the interactive part of an album like this is Physical Graffiti by Zeppelin, where the windows of that building, what was in those windows changed with the album depending on what sleeve was in the, you know, and the rotating thing on Zeppelin, that you lose all that stuff, all
Yeah.
the interactiveness, interactability, whatever. I mean, that's the most disappointing thing. And you know what? How long have CDs been out, roughly?
Since the late 80s at least.
I haven't gotten over this. I'm still really pissed off about it. Seriously,
Right.
chime in, folks, if you I've been looking for this.
Yeah, when it comes to CDs, I prefer when they make it in a way where it feels more like a sleeve as opposed to just the jewel case or glass
Yeah,
case or whatever it's
I
called.
agree. Hey, a Mike Tiano CD, check that out. And it's more like a sleeve than a jewel case.
Yeah.
But so my Roger Dean comment is, I loved when he talked about creativity, and when he talked about some people think it's a skill, you're either born with it, it's a get or not. And I
Oh
love,
yeah, I was thinking about you when I saw that part because like you mentioned it in one of your Drum Talk TV lives.
yeah, that's right, we were talking about that. Is it practice that makes a great musician, or are you born with it? And while I kind of leaned one way with music, saying I think you don't have to practice to be a great musician, I loved Roger's take. It's almost like the opposite. Like, you don't have to have a gift. And he talked about when he had the flu or a cold, and he was just locked in the house, didn't even have energy. He was in art school, I think, didn't even have energy to go get meals and stuff like that. And he just like did the musical equivalent of what we call wood shedding, where you just lock yourself and you just work at it. He did that with his art. And what he ended up with, he said, had someone shown me the day before that that's what I would have ended up with, I never would have believed. It was a really neat lesson in creativity. And he talked about, you know, recently I read an article by Buffett, the billionaire Buffett, saying you got to make time to just think. And I thought of that article immediately, Warren Buffett, when Roger said, I have a German Shepherd and I walk him every day. And when I go for a walk, I can, my brain, I'm paraphrasing, but my brain breathes and I can just kind of take time. And I loved that section. I actually have it queued up to show Enja, because she wasn't watching it with me when that part came on. My wife is a professional artist, folks, so that's why I want her to see that. But it's a great lesson, no matter what you do. And even he says, whether you're a musician, whether you're an artist, you know, whatever you do, it's worth watching that segment, even though it had nothing to do with Yessongs. But
Yeah.
to have his take, he's a real fun person to listen to and watch talk, because he's very thoughtful and professorial. And he's created amazing artwork for our favorite band. So
yeah, and like one of the things he said was, it kind of reminded me of what Steve said about Steve Howe said about, you know, meditating at least once per day. Like
right.
Roger mentioned that like a half hour each day, at least at that time, he would Mike, when the documentary came out or was filmed or whatever, he said that half an hour each day he spends time. You could call it meditation, prayer, or whatever. But
Right.
yeah, like having time to just, I guess, relax the mind and be in that state or whatever. It seems like it's a thing that helps these artists
You
out.
know, on a personal note, I want to say that it's critical, even if you're not an artist, even if you're not a
Right, right.
musician, yeah, especially in this crazy world we live in. And it's so easy. I mean, Stephen and I know firsthand, aside from this podcast, I have two companies, Drum Talk TV and a marketing training company. Stephen works with me with both. It's so easy to get so caught up with work, and even with family. It's just so easy to not make time for yourself to do that. And it's really important. I went through something a few years ago that was just devastating, and it could have been worse. And what helped get me through it was I went to a friend who I knew studied Tibetan Buddhism, and I asked him to send me something to help me learn a little bit about what's helped him. And I got a book from him by Pema Chodron, who's the only American that runs the only Tibetan Buddhist monastery that's in North America, and it's in Canada and in Nova Scotia, actually. And it changed my life. It changed my life. And it's the only form of meditation, by the way. I know this is a tangent, just trying to be helpful. But it's the only form of meditation where instead of focusing on something, which most disciplines of meditation are, there's the only one where the object is to focus on nothing, to push it, constantly be pushing everything away. And that takes a lot of work, and it takes a lot of practice. So Roger, what Roger and Steve brought to the table with that topic is really, really important, especially if I don't know if anybody ever feels stressed, but if you do, it's nice to be able to have that in your pocket to reach into, to bring yourself to where you need to be the best you can be.
Yeah, you definitely need that time, like, for yourself. Like, not just you, but like everyone. It's what I'm
Yeah.
trying to say.
And change it up a little bit from time to time. Drop some acid, eat some shrooms, whatever you're thinking. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding, kids at home. Don't try that at home. I'm just kidding.
Right. So, do you have anything else to say before we close out?
No, other than the fact that if you're kind of new to Yes, if you're enjoying what they're doing now, that's awesome. If you're enjoying things in their back catalog, that's awesome. If you're even a casual Yes fan, check out Yessongs. To me, that's probably the most pivotal thing in their career.
Yeah, it could be a nice gateway. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was for me. I got Yessongs and Close to the Edge on the same day. And I love live. I always buy live music first, or back then anyways. And I did that to get a tree cross section, if you will, of the different rings of their catalog all in one package. So I listened to Yessongs a few times first. Then I put on Close to the Edge, and the versions were so different. I was like, what is this? I just learned and memorized all this. Now it goes like this. They are that different. They're both magnificent. But Yessongs, I think, is just it's a great gateway, like you said. It really is. And it encapsulates what really, really catapulted them as a live performing band, I think. Not to take away any years before that with Peter and with Bill and with Tony, but that album is just so much energy, even with Clap, Clap is in the movie and Mood for a Day on the album. It's a must see, even if you're a casual Yes fan or just learned how to spell the word.
Yeah.
How about you? Closing thoughts on this episode of the News Desk Report on Yesshift?
Yeah, well, I think we covered like everything we needed to. You pretty much like I pretty much echo those sentiments about Yessongs, and yeah, like I'm surprised we like got all these in a timely manner.
Me too. It's only been 3 hours. Just kidding. All right, folks, thanks for following what we do. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. If you're watching, you can watch us on Facebook and see the visual versions, which often have maybe not so much in this episode, but often have a lot of images and often even video cut in. And that's at facebook.com/Yesshift. And they can listen to us as well on Anchor, right, Steve?
Yeah, so anchor.fm/Yesshift, and you can see all the podcasting platforms we're on there. And yeah, you can also email us at yesshiftpodcast@gmail.com, and we might read your thoughts on the show. We even take suggestions. We have a few that we still have in the pipeline from listeners like Ian Barber, Brian Harris, and Taylor Savvy. So yeah, they're still on our radar, so don't worry. And yeah, so keep an eye out for future episodes,
including guests, more guests. We just had Mike Tiano on. Mike Tiano of Notes from the Edge fame, who also just put out a new marvelous album. And we've got some members and other Periphery family, extended family people that we're going to be inviting. So watch for that. We're looking forward to a great new year. And I don't know if we'll be putting out other episodes before the end of the year.
Well, just the Christmas solo albums.
Yeah. That's in that. I had that in my mind because we're recording that tomorrow as we record. But other than those two, that might be it for these two. That might be it for this year. And happy holidays, no matter when you're watching this or listening to it. There's always a holiday of something somewhere about something like for someone.
National Grilled Cheese Day. Something.
Ooh, when is that?
I don't know. I just made it up.
I'm in, even though I'm not supposed to have bread, but I'm in.
It's probably a real thing, I bet.
It must be. Yeah. Cool. National Yesshift Podcast Day. We'll come up with that on the anniversary of our first episode. When was that?
I'm 99% sure it's July 11th, which is also 7-Eleven Day. So
which is also Grandma and Grandpa's anniversary.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And most of the times I randomly look at the clock, it says 7-Eleven. All right, folks, thanks so much for joining us. And we will see you again soon, or you'll see us or hear from us or something like that.
Yeah, bye.